Something that stumped me during the creation of my Radagon's complete timeline video was the mentioning of Radagon learning sorceries without any actual evidence of him doing so. Radagon's icon states, "As the husband of Rennala of Caria, the red-haired Radagon studied sorcery," and yet not one spell mentions him. Radagon also doesn't use any spells during his boss battle, only incantations. Was this a mistake? Or is there more to Radagon's mysterious time spent in Liurnia? Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am a human Justicar, and today we'll be discussing a few theories regarding Radagon's secret sorcery. If you haven't seen any of my Radagon videos recently, I'd highly recommend checking those out first before watching this one, because I will be referring to them a lot today. Also, if you aren't subscribed to my channel yet but enjoy my videos, you should do so by clicking subscribe down below. There will be major spoilers ahead, so please continue at your own risk. Since he was the husband of Queen Rennala, who was the head of Raya Lucaria Academy, I always assumed that Radagon studied in the academy. However, nowhere does it claim that Radagon learned sorcery at Raya Lucaria. There are no pictures of him hanging on the walls, and the only statue of him is found in the Grand Library with Lady Rennala. Since looking it over, it definitely seems more likely that Radagon would have studied at the Carian Study Hall. The Mask of Confidence is a mask with the mouth sewn shut with golden thread. When Radagon married Rennala, he ordered the Carian magic preceptors to don these masks, to make it clear that all of their matters were to be kept strictly private. A preceptor is an instructor. Their robes tell us that they were the magic preceptors who served the Carian royals. There still is a preceptor that lurks in the now abandoned Carian Study Hall, Preceptor Miriam, who drops several Carian sorceries when defeated. We can assume that once upon a time, this study hall was full of preceptors and their royal pupils. These royal instructors may have been the ones to teach Radagon sorcery, and if this is the case, that would actually explain why there isn't much information about it, since the magic preceptors were sworn to secrecy. So, what kind of sorcery did Radagon study that he so desperately wanted to keep a secret? In Elden Ring, there are 13 types of sorcery that exist. That means there's 13 possible answers, which makes finding the right one a challenge. The simplest way of finding our potential answer is by process of elimination. For the sake of this video, we will be continuing under the assumption that he only learned one. This list does not include incantations of any kind. These are all sorceries with spells that can be found, learned, and cast in the game. First are the glintstone sorceries of the Raya Lucaria Academy and the Carian sorceries of the Carian royal family. These two would be the most obvious options, seeing as how it was Carian magic preceptors who would have been Radagon's teachers in the first place. And Radagon, by marrying Queen Rennala, was a vital member of the Carian royal family. There's also the connection between Radagon and the Red Wolf of Radagon, an enemy boss found in Raya Lucaria. It uses variations of both Carian and glintstone spells to attack the player, so this could be a hint at Radagon learning those sorceries. Glintstone and Carian sorceries are the two most common and well-known sorceries throughout the lands between. So why all of the secrecy? It was a marriage between Radagon and Rennala that brought an end to the two warring nations. The full moon crossbow was made to celebrate the matrimonial union and reconciliation between the houses of the Erdtree and the full moon, Leyndell and Raya Lucaria. This kind of contradicts the idea of Radagon wanting to keep his time and studies in Liurnia a secret. Additionally, just because the Red Wolf of Radagon uses glintstone and Carian sorceries doesn't necessarily mean Radagon did as well. There also isn't any evidence that Radagon ever used either of these sorceries during or after his time in Liurnia. While I don't think that these are the sorceries Radagon would have studied in secret, it's still entirely possible. The next type of sorcery is the night sorceries of Celia. The Celians were assassins that utilized every option that aided their dirty work, and it is said that they often hunted their fellows. Their sorceries were also heavily influenced by the Eternal City, such as Night Maiden's Mist and Eternal Darkness. It could be possible that Radagon wished to learn the night sorceries, or even perhaps the sorceries of the treacherous Eternal City. This would explain the need for secrecy since they are described as forbidden sorcery. Other than that though, I don't see any other evidence of Radagon ever learning Cillian sorceries or what he would have used them for, so I'm not convinced. Next up are the two sorceries of Radagon's sons, Magma of Praetor Rykard and Gravity of General Radagon. The spell Rolling Magma tells us, after discovering the ancient hexes of Gelmir, Rykard, son of Queen Rennala, brought them back into practical use as new forms of sorcery. Magma sorceries were developed from the magma of Mount Gelmir, and as far as we know, Radagon never set foot on Mount Gelmir. If Rykard is the one to discover these ancient hexes and bring them back as sorcery, then it wouldn't line up with our timeline. Now, gravity sorcery is a little trickier. It's said to originate from the Onyx Lords, and General Radagon learned from his master, an alabaster lord with skin of stone. Coincidentally, there is an Onyx Lord locked inside the royal grave Everjail, located behind the Carian Manor. If Radagon had studied gravity magic like his son Radagon, perhaps this was the Onyx Lord that taught him. We know that Nokron was banished underground by gravity magic, as explained by the spell Meteorite of Estelle, a manifestation of the power with which Estelle leveled the Eternal City. I believe that something similar happened to both Nokstella and the unnamed Eternal City under Leyndell. Could Elden Lord Radagon have studied gravitational magic with the intent to do the same to Academy Gate Town? The Mask of Confidence could have prevented the magic preceptors from warning Rennala, as the head of Raya Lucaria, and other officials in Academy Gate Town of Radagon's destructive plan. This is one of my favorite theories because it goes in line with the theory from my first Radagon video that his marriage to Queen Rennala was a lot more nefarious than it's presented to us. There is a major flaw in this theory, and that is General Radagon's tutelage with the Alabaster Lord in Caelid. The Remembrance of the Star Scourge tells us, the Red Lion General wielded gravitational powers which he learned in Celia during his younger days. If the magic preceptors and his own father were studying gravitational magic in Liurnia, why would he have to travel so far away? As fun as this theory can be, it does not add up. But never fear, there are still 8 more sorceries to consider, so let's keep going. Loretta's sorceries were developed by Loretta after her long, bloody journey to seek out a place where the Albinaurics could live in peace. So this is an obvious no. Even despite her previously being a Carian royal guard, it just doesn't make sense in our timeline. The same goes for Death, Bubble, Full Moon, and Crystallian sorceries. While all could potentially be the right one, there just isn't enough evidence to connect them to Radagon. Primeval sorceries are another interesting type of sorcery to consider. 2 of the Academy's founding Glintstone sorcerers, Master Lusat and Azur, were also primeval current sorcerers. They and their pupil sorceress Selene were seemingly banished from the Academy once Queen Rennala became the head of the school. Selene tells us,
if you recall, I was exiled from the Academy of Raya Lucaria. It was for attempting to restore the primeval current of Glintstone sorcery. The toothless pedantry peddled by the Carian royal family can rot for all I care. I want Glintstone sorceries that open our minds, unbound by terrestrial taboos, no matter what we give in return.
So it's obvious that primeval sorceries were taboo to the Carians. This could be why Radagon had the preceptors don the Mask of Confidence. But why would he want to study the primeval current sorceries? Something I discussed in my latest video is the fact that the Elden Beast is a fallen star, as the Elden Stars tell us. The Greater Will sent a golden star bearing a beast into the lands between. And the eldest of the primeval sorceries just so happens to be the founding reign of stars, said to have been discovered by an ancient astrologer. The glimpse of the primeval current that the astrologer saw became real, and the star's amber rained down on this land. We know from Sorceress Selene that the star's amber is glintstone, but what if this glimpse of the primeval current carried with it not just glintstone, but also a golden star? As we've seen with the two fingers in the round table hold, communicating with the greater will isn't as simple as it seems, and can take a very long time. Could Radagon have been trying to open the primeval current to reach the greater will? I don't want to count this one out, but as some viewers have pointed out in my last video, the two events might not have been connected at all. If that's the case, then it kind of throws the whole theory out the window. So let's take a look at our last two sorceries: cold or ice sorceries and aberrant sorceries. Cold and ice sorceries originate from two mysterious sources: the Knights of Zamor in the mountaintops of the Giants and the Old Snow Witch. The spell Freezing Mist explains that the snowy crone taught the young Ranni to fear the dark moon as she imparted her cold sorcery. We know that this cold sorcery was considered heretical after obtaining the Snow Witch hat. It also tells us that the Old Witch was Ranni's secret mentor. Like father, like daughter, Ranni the Witch too studied sorcery in secret. Having said that, I don't see much connection between the Old Crone and Radagon in particular. So let's switch focus on the Zamor ice magic. The Knights of Zamor are long-lived warriors, clad in biting, freezing winds, and are said to have been the mortal enemies of the fire giants since time immemorial. Zamor is not a race. By the way it is described, it sounds more like a place or a civilization, similar to how Loretta is a knight of the Halig tree, or Moongrum is a Carian knight. The spell Zamor Ice Storm is the only known ice sorcery spell. It describes them as cloaked in icy tempests. The Knights of Zamor have challenged the fire giants since ancient times. The connection they have to Radagon is the lone knight imprisoned in the Weeping Everjail. Upon defeat, this single Knight of Zamor, so far away from home, drops Radagon's scar seal, an eye engraved with an Elden rune, said to be the seal of King Consort Radagon. These seals represent the lifelong duty of those chosen by the gods. Although this proves some sort of connection between this Knight of Zamor and Radagon, it doesn't prove that Radagon was secretly studying ice sorcery. Finally, we've arrived at the last sorcery type: aberrant sorcery. Briars of Sin and Briars of Punishment are the only two known spells. These abnormal sorceries, which technically are called thorn sorceries, do not scale with intelligence, but rather with faith. The Staff of the Guilty explains, sorceries are scaled with faith rather than intelligence when wielding this staff, which enhances thorn sorceries in particular. It also says that these sorceries are similar to hex magic. A hex means to either bewitch or place a curse on someone or something. The staff itself is fashioned from a smoldering withered sapling that turns the blood of sacrifices pierced by it into glintstone. Red glintstone, to be precise. These types of sorceries are despised by the Academy, as the Briars of Punishment's description states. An aberrant sorcery discovered by exiled criminals. Theirs are the sorceries most reviled by the Academy. There are also multiple roaming groups of thorn sorcerers and fire monks in Liurnia Lakes. One such group just so happens to have a camp set up just north of the Carian Study Hall. These exiled criminals are also known as the Guilty, a group I brought up in my latest video. The Guilty hood is the garb of those accused of lesser crimes, indicated by the collar of sharpened branches. The individuals we discussed are the ones found crucified in Limgrave and the Weeping Peninsula, but we know that the practice is much more ancient due to the presence of Guilty found in Farum Azula, identifiable by the collar of sharpened branches hanging around their neck. These particular Guilty, however, found faith in their suffering. They now wear their collar of thorns as a crown around their heads. The Briars of Punishment tell us, the Guilty, their eyes gouged by thorns, lived in eternal darkness. There they discovered the Blood Star. The fire monks and prelates are strongly connected to the thorn sorcerers, always seen traveling together in groups. The thorn whip, dropped by fire prelates, is a hefty whip covered in crimson thorns, a device of fearsome religious encouragement. It is fashioned in the image of the briars of sin. Let's talk about the connections between thorn sorceries and Radagon of the Golden Order. Starting with the first one. The impenetrable thorns that block the entrance to the Erd Tree. Impenetrable thorns refuse all. None may enter the Erd Tree. Melina speaks to us about them.
You are unable to enter the Erd Tree. No? Prevented by the mantle of barbs. The thorns are impenetrable. A husk of the Erd Tree's being that spurns all that exists without. The only way to stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord is to pass the thorns.
The thorns wrapped tightly against the entrance to the Erd Tree are accompanied by Radagon's signature crosshatch rune, glimmering in gold, signifying, to me at least, that he had something to do with their presence. But why thorns? Thorns symbolize sin, as well as pain and sorrow. Queen Marika's shattering of the Elden Ring was considered a sin, a grave trespass against the Greater Will and the Golden Order. For the guilty, thorns were a part of their punishment, symbolizing their sins, their transgressions. It's hard to believe that it's a simple coincidence that a mantle of thorns just so happens to be the one thing preventing the player from entering the Erd Tree. But thorn sorceries create violent red thorns from blood sacrifices. How could these possibly be the same kind of magic? Well, a unique thing about thorn sorceries is that when they are performed, the spell requires a self-inflicted blood sacrifice, wounds the caster with thorns of punishment. That would mean Radagon wounded himself when casting from inside the Erd Tree, and I believe that's exactly what happened. The long, blood-red object jutting out of Queen Marika's torso might just be the result of the blood sacrifice needed to create the impenetrable thorns. We know that Marika and Radagon, despite sharing the same body at this time, were at odds with one another. Marika's hammer is the tool with which Queen Marika shattered the Elden Ring, and Radagon attempted to repair it. Radagon was in complete opposition to Queen Marika's actions, and instead wished to make things right again. He may have created the thorns to prevent others from trying to free himself and Queen Marika as a part of her punishment. Punishment is exactly what Queen Marika received after shattering the Elden Ring. As Enya tells us, after the Elden Ring shattering, she was imprisoned in the Erd Tree. The Elden Beast was also partially responsible for this. It performs an attack called Divine Punishment that mimics the crucifixion of Marika, but you'll notice that it pierces the player with golden stars, not a singular red one. The Elden Beast restricted Queen Marika's movements by crucifying her, and Radagon imprisoned her inside the Erd Tree with the Mantle of Barbs, giving him a chance to try and fix the Elden Ring. The second connection is that of Renala's Bewitchment. This is my own theory that we discussed in my last two Radagon videos, Radagon's complete timeline and the Great Rune of the Unborn. Renala has completely forgotten who she is, or should I say, who she once was. Now she spends every moment cradling the amber egg gifted to her by her husband, Radagon. I theorize that the amber egg was bewitched, and has Renala completely trapped under its spell. If you remember earlier, I mentioned how thorn sorcery is considered in the game similar to hex magic. A hex is to bewitch someone or something. Now, the only two spells we find have nothing to do with bewitchment, which possibly debunks my entire argument. But there also isn't any official thorn sorcery scroll found in the game, so we may never know for sure what other type of hex magic thorn sorceries can perform. Having said that, there is one who we know for sure practiced bewitchment in the lands between, and that is Radagon's Empyrean son, Miquella, the Unalloyed. The Bewitchment branch works by piercing a foe to turn them into a temporary ally. and it is crafted with a bud cultivated from youthful sacramental blood. The end is sharpened to resemble a needle, or perhaps the sharp end of a thorn. Miquella actively used blood magic, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Miquella's use of blood magic draws a connection back to thorn sorceries. The Staff of the Guilty is made from a smoldering, withered sapling that only works when using the blood of sacrifices. The Bewitching Branch is crafted from a sacramental bud, an item that shares similarities with the crystal bud and the rimmed crystal bud. Both of these state that they're a young plant, prevented from maturing, otherwise known as a sapling. Who better to teach Miquella about this type of magic than his own father? We know that they shared magic with one another, such as Radagon's Rings of Light and the Triple Rings of Light incantations. It could be that either Radagon taught Miquella or Miquella discovered his father's secret sorcery. There are also ancient signs of a connection. The red thorn round shield is a small wooden round shield. Its emblem is an ancient red thorn design. This design eerily resembles Radagon's rune. It also depicts two sides becoming conjoined and connecting to 8 posts. Queen Marika and Radagon have 8 confirmed children: Godwyn, Mohg, Morgott, Radon, Rykard, Ranni, Malenia, and Miquella, and they are each 2 sides conjoined into one. There are many other smaller aspects surrounding Radagon that connect back to thorn sorcery, such as thorn sorcery skill with faith rather than intelligence. The branches that appear at the base of his statues slightly resemble the briars of sin. The connection between both Radagon and the thorn sorcerers to the fire giants and the fell god. There's just one problem: the blood star, which is a topic for another video. So I'll pass this question off to you. Which sorcery do you think Radagon learned in secret, and why? Thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Please leave any corrections, suggestions, and questions you may have down in those comments as well. I always try to be active in the comment section as much as I can, so make sure to, at the very least, say hi. Another huge thank you to everyone who supports my channel, whether you donated or shared my new shorts or even just liked this video. I appreciate it so, so much. As always, I can't wait to talk to you all in the next one. Bye!